You're listening to Thunderquack Podcast Network. This is the Thunderquack Podcast, the official podcast of Thunderquack Podcast Network, where anything can happen. So strap yourselves in and hold on to your butts. It's Thunderquack time!
Hello and welcome back to the Thunderquack Podcast. It's one of those other Tuesdays, or technically for us it's one of those other Mondays. But for you guys, it's one of those other Tuesdays. If you support us over at patreon.com/thunderquack, like our Patreon producers, Brian Murawski and JJ Samuel will do. Otherwise, it's one of those other Fridays, because it's every other Tuesday on Patreon, every other Friday for everybody else.
Oh, I get
I'm
it.
one of your hosts, Michael Cohen.
I'm your other host, Amanda Conkin. I didn't understand the shtick. I get it now. We're every other. I get it.
Yeah, so it's one of the
You're so witty,
it's one of the other ones, you know.
You're so witty.
It's not the regular. It's the Tuesdays that we don't put the episode out are the regular Tuesdays.
Okay.
Because we put it out every other Tuesday.
Okay.
So it can only ever come out on the other Tuesdays, never on the regular Tuesdays.
Okay.
Right?
It's sure. Your logic is infallible.
Well, yeah, I didn't need you to tell me that. My logic is always infallible since the day I was born. I don't know what to tell you. Okay. But it's the Ian Malcolm. When the T-Rex breaks out of the thing and he goes, "Boy, do I hate being right all the time." It's and I at work last week there was for those of you guys who don't know, it's like I one part of the many aspects of my job is software development. And there's a product that we're getting ready to launch. It's really close. That I've basically been managing this product development. And I would like a few more weeks so that we can button down the admin backend instead of going with what the developers have given us as like the default out of the box, which is using WordPress and plugins and stuff like that. So it's like it's a bit of a mess. And if we had 2 weeks, we could make it a lot easier to use for us internally. But my boss says, nope, we got to get it out. So we'll just deal with it. We're the only ones who are going to see it anyways. And after the meeting, talking to the rest of the team, I'm like, ugh. This is one of those instances where it's like, I know I have seen this before 100 times in this job. I see it coming. I know exactly what it's going to be. Within the next 3 months, the business is going to be going, this is really inefficient, you guys. We need to fix this back end. And all of a sudden, what would have been 2 weeks on the back end of developing the product is going to be a 6-week project. Because now we got to open everything back up and get back up to speed and research, right? Like there's ramp up time and stuff like that. This is how it always goes. And it's like, I'm trying to save us 4 weeks, 3 months from now, but it's not my call. So, cause we got other stuff that's got to get done. So, but it is one of those things where it's like, where I know that I'm waiting in 3 months for a boy do I hate being right all the time moment. The T-Rex is going to break through the fence and I'm going to be sitting in that car going, all right. And then like, this is the problem is that my boss is John Hammond sitting back in the visitor center. John Hammond never in danger of being eaten by a dinosaur in that movie, by the way. Just hey everybody. Never a problem for the guy. Even at the end of the movie when the T-Rex busts into the visitor center to fight the raptors, he pulls up in the car as if there's nothing going on. I've decided not to endorse my park or whatever, right? That's not how it goes. Right. that Dr. Grant says, I've decided not to endorse your park, and he goes, so have I. And then they drive off to the helicopter, and he gets in the helicopter, and then they fly away on the helicopter. And John Hammond hasn't seen a scary dinosaur in all of this. Like, and that's exactly like that. There is no better analogy for a CEO or like a president of a company, where it's like they sit back in their chair and they say things over the walkie-talkie, and then still Ian Malcolm in this analogy grabs the walkie-talkie and goes, "You don't know what you're doing," and then has to walk the person through it. And Ian Malcolm is the one who gets attacked by the Tyrannosaurus Rex and gets his leg split open. I mean, that's also his own fault. He like waved the thing at the T-Rex. So I don't know. Maybe it's not entirely accurate. Jurassic Park's a great film. This is a great movie.
It is pretty great. I feel like. Do you? I feel like you is that like the Jeff Goldblum that you like role that you identify with the most? Is that one? Or is there like another?
Ooh, that's tough.
Right.
That's tough.
I just so everybody knows, like I feel like I've talked about this on the podcast before, but like 17-year-old me or 16-year-old me loved Jeff Goldblum. Like he was my ultimate. Him and Bill Pullman, because of Independence Day.
Independence Day. Yeah, we've
whenever
definitely talked
Independence Day came out, that is when I started to fall in love with both Bill Pullman and
I mean, like those are the two. Those are the two roles, right? Like that's for our generation for sure. Those are the seminal Jeff Goldblum roles. Yeah. I think also like up there is Seth Brundle, right? I think that's a big one.
Who's Seth Brundle?
The Fly.
Okay. But nobody wants to be Seth Brundle, so I feel
but you could identify with the character. He is a genius scientist. He's just a little bit dangerous.
That's true.
On his IMDb, known for Jurassic Park #1, The Fly #2, The Grand Budapest Hotel, which like that's interesting.
Okay.
Because I think of all of the Wes Anderson films, his role is really underutilized in Grand Budapest. I think his best Wes Anderson role is in The Life Aquatic as like the bad guy, as like the nemesis, right? Which I really like him in that. And then Independence Day is the fourth one in his known for. But just going through his filmography, he's got a lot of movies coming out. That's exciting. Let's see. So there's his Jurassic World Dominion comes out soon, that he hopefully has more than 2 lines in. He's Grandmaster in the MCU.
Yeah, so love it.
Let me see. There's a lot of stuff on his IMDb that I'm like, this is not necessarily iconic roles of his. He's in Isle of Dogs because it's a Wes Anderson film, so everybody is. Portlandia. Oh man, I never watched Hotel Artemis. I should watch that just because he's in it.
What is Hotel Artemis? I've never even heard of that.
It was like a kind of an artsy. I don't know. It's hard to explain. The trailer
kind of an artsy. That's fine.
It was like it's like I don't know. It was like a trippy sort of artsy film. Whatever.
That's fair.
The trailer looked cool. I remember that I was like, oh, I should watch that, and then I didn't.
That's the story.
He is in an episode of Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. I forgot about that. Nice. Let's see. Grand Budapest. Oh man, he's in Glee. That's unfortunate. I'm never gonna watch Glee.
I mean, remember when Glee was like a thing? Glee was a thing.
Yeah, I do, and I remember when I was like, "Why is Glee a thing? This is annoying." And that was back when I had cable and had to watch promos for things because I was watching TV shows live, and it was like, "Oh my god, I hate these commercials so
We're
much."
ancient, Michael. We're ancient.
Yeah. Law and Order: Criminal Intent, where he headlined that show for 2 seasons.
Oh wow! I don't think I knew that.
So I think there's probably a lot of people who think of him in that respect. He was a recurring character on Will and Grace. There's Life Aquatic.
This is a lot of a lot of
He is in that. He's in that one episode of Friends, and he's fantastic in that one episode of Friends.
which episode of Friends is he in? I'm just rewatching Friends.
The one
I don't
where Joey
remember.
goes to audition for him. He's
Oh,
the
yeah,
famous
and he pees.
actor Leonard Hayes. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's bad, and he's like, give me another chance. So he comes back later and he's got to pee real bad.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
but he's
So good.
better because he's like, ooh, I like this energy. And then he's like, come back one more time, and then Joey
Bring
is
that
like, I
energy.
gotta keep that energy. So he just drinks a bunch of yoo-hoo beforehand, and then pees
So
on
good.
Jeff Goldblum right at the end of the episode, and we never find out did he get the role? I guess not.
Yeah, we
Because
assume
we
not.
never see Jeffrey
I feel
Goldblum
like
again.
we would assume. Not.
Uh,
Oh, it's
he's-
weird to call him Jeffrey Goldblum.
yeah,
Ooh, that just
look
pinged
if
in
I
weird in my ear.
if I were friends with Jeff Goldblum, you know what? Let's
You
be a
would
little
call
more
him Jeffrey?
aspirational than that. When I'm friends with Jeff Goldblum,
There you go.
when I finally meet Jeff Goldblum and I tell him that my dad died, but that like I need a replacement, and like he's the next, he is definitely Jeff Goldblum is the next in line after my dad,
There you go.
to be my dad. So it's like when I tell him that, and he's like, "Oh, that's a really sad story," and then he takes pity on me and he adopts me as his son. I'm gonna call him Jeffrey
Okay.
the whole time, and
That's-
he's gonna think it's delightful. He's gonna find it really
Okay.
charming. He's gonna be like, "No one calls me Jeffrey, but you do, and I like that." And that's what we're gonna bond over. So just so you guys know that.
Sounds
Yeah,
very
you know, I do.
interesting.
I think that Jurassic Park is definitely like his big, like his number one identifier for me. But I do really like some of his older stuff, as we have talked about in the past. It's even the cover image for an episode. Earth Girls Are Easy is one of my favorite movies of all time. Like it is one of my comfort movies. And but that character is so weird that it's like I can't relate to him in that. He's also really good in Buckaroo Banzai, but again, it's like Buckaroo Banzai is such a weird movie. Yeah.
How did we get here? What were we talking about, Michael?
Work. I was talking about work.
Okay.
And I was relating
And about
myself
being
to
right
Jeff
all the
Goldblum.
time.
About being right all the
Yes.
time.
Yeah. Yes.
Excellent. I mean, I think that was a great opening to an episode. I think we got to a great place.
I think that people know that we could just rant forever about Jeff Goldblum if we don't center ourselves.
Yeah, let's save the fun stuff to close out.
Ugh.
But really, really quickly, let's get into what happened here. Here's the thing, Amanda. I know you don't want to talk about it, but it's not. It would be disingenuous of us as Canadians who have very routinely given Americans a hard time for all of the Nazis that they have, that they seem to be doing nothing about.
Nazis.
And here's the thing. What happened in Canada was one thing. The next day in the United States, Nazis like Nazis in like Nazi uniforms threw a literal Nazi rally in Florida, and like everyone seems to just be okay with that happened. Like nobody's like, hey, you guys are a hate group, and what you're doing is actually probably against some sort of law, because I am of the personal opinion that any time that you say, hey, we're Nazis, we're proud to be Nazis, and we're going to talk about how great it is to be Nazis and what we should be doing as Nazis, that you are inciting people to violence against people that aren't Nazis, basically. I mean, like nowadays, like the modern incarnation of Nazism is just like anyone who's not in that group is on the out group, and so they're all fair game for whatever Nazis want to do. So I personally think that you're crossing a line, and that gets into illegal territory, because bad stuff has happened in the last few years.
America has different laws about stuff like that, though, which is so cray.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like they choose to have different laws about that sort of stuff. So
and the Supreme Court, and there's so much to talk about. But yes, we can talk about Canadian bad stuff, because we do. Me too.
So, depending on who you ask, truck drivers in Canada are annoyed with um the the mandates, COVID mandates, and the rules about basically crossing the border,
Mhm.
as I understand it. That like when they cross the border, I'm not 100% sure, but I think if they're unvaccinated, like this is the issue is that they feel like they're being mandated to get vaccines, even though there is no technical mandate for vaccination in Canada unless you're a federal employee. Like that's
So
the only people in Canada who are being mandated by the Canadian government to get vaccines are federal employees. There are other companies that are mandating that you be vaccinated, but they're doing that as private companies, right? That's not the government telling you to do it. That's whatever company telling you to do it, right? But they feel that the rules are unnecessarily harsh and are basically forcing people to have to get vaccines. Is that accurate to your
no, so
understanding
I
of it?
googled this. I did
Okay.
Google this. It's actually that there has been like put in place that they're not going to be able to cross the border. I'm pretty sure the
Okay.
truckers because you have to quarantine if you're not vaccinated,
Yeah.
and truckers can't do that,
Yeah.
right? So
Well,
the
that yeah.
companies
So
would
that's
right.
that's
So
what I was
like
getting at. Yeah, is that like the regulations for like unvaccinated people crossing the border is that you have to quarantine for 10 days, right, or something
so
like
it's
that.
so it's like so you can't so essentially so it's the idea that like I get the word mandate, but it's like you cannot have a job that requires you to go back and forth across the border if you have to quarantine when you
Yeah.
cross that border either way. So it is in essence that they are unable to do that job if they are unvaccinated.
If
So
they because they are choosing to not be vaccinated.
because they are choosing to not be vaccinated.
Yeah.
Yes. Correct.
So
So I understand that. Like I understand where that
yeah.
comes from and that there are many ways that they could have addressed that because there are ways, right? Truckers are quite isolated, right? Like there are things that if they had put together a cohesive argument and a list of things that would enable truckers to be able to do their jobs with these restrictions in place, maybe I would have listened.
Yeah.
Turns out they didn't, and so I didn't.
Well, so that's why I say depending on who you ask, right? Because if you ask
Yeah.
I think the average person supporting this movement, that's what they will tell you is the motivation behind it. But depending on these other people that you ask that maybe are paying attention to where the movement started and specifically who it started with, that it seems like it's a little bit more about white supremacy and anti-immigration stuff and Canada for Canadians and they took our jobs and make America great again somehow
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 Canadians, yeah, are MAGA people.
Canadians are walking around with Confederate flags, wearing MAGA hats, saying that they have a problem with the Canadian government. Well, yeah, you want it to be the American government that America doesn't even want. You're an idiot if that's the case, but whatever.
Yeah.
Um,
I will
and
say,
I
I don't
guess
think they're MAGA hats, they're Canada First hats. There's a weird kind of patriotism because patriotism in Canada is very different than patriotism in
I
America. So,
Amanda, I saw people driving around on Saturday wearing MAGA
oh,
hats.
really? MAGA hats?
Yes,
Oh, come on.
with
Well,
Canadian
then that's
flags on like plastered on the side of their car. It was a really difficult thing because we had stuff to do on Saturday. Kara has a dance class, and I didn't realize that this was happening. Like I didn't realize that they were going to try and shut down Highway 1. I so normally that is how we get to dance class on a Saturday, and it's usually about a 15-minute drive. I can do it in 10, but it's about a 15-minute drive. And so I gave us 20 minutes to give us a nice 5-minute buffer, right? Maybe even 25 minutes because I don't like being late for things. And we get on the highway, and as we're getting on the highway, I see a car pulling off the highway with a great big old Canada flag draped off the back of it. And I'm like, huh, interesting.
Yeah.
And my brain's like slowly putting it together of like, oh, is that they must be like supporting the truckers or whatever. Like it must be they're just driving around supporting the truckers, not realizing that like that this whole thing was coming to a head on Saturday in Ottawa, right?
Because I don't understand why it came to a head on a Saturday. Nobody works on Saturday. Who do you think you're
yeah,
inconveniencing?
yeah.
Sorry,
Just
that was
regular,
a
just
that was
regular people trying to get their kids to dance class, for God's sake. And then as we get on the highway, I realize the center lane's not moving very fast. And then I start seeing all of the Canadian flags, and it's just they. So Highway 1, where I get on it, is 4 lanes, right? It's there's 3 regular lanes and then the HOV lane. We're only going like 2 exits, 3 exits, so usually I just stay in one of the regular lanes. I don't get all the way over the HOV lane because there's no point to get all the way over, just get all the way back, right? But so I'm like looking at it and I'm like, what the heck? And then realize that these guys are driving like 30 on the highway, right? Sorry, 30 kilometers an hour, Americans. It's
which
about
is
what's
quite
that?
slow.
What's 30 is about
I don't even know.
like 50
12?
miles per
15?
hour, maybe? Is it less? Which
50?
one's more or
It's
less?
less.
Theirs is more. Theirs is faster, right? Bigger
No,
number,
ours
not
is
faster,
faster.
bigger number.
No. Ours is a bigger number. 100 km is like 80 or something in America.
Okay, yeah, you're right.
Miles an hour.
Yeah, so like 12, yeah.
Because I always
Something like that.
just like never know how fast I'm going when I'm in America. I'm like,
Yeah.
this seems like
Yeah.
it should be slower.
But anyways, I they're going like 30, which is like a school zone, right? And
That's a
causing
good limit.
all sorts of problems with the traffic. So we go one exit and I get off, but because they're causing all of these problems, it's like when we get off the highway, everybody else is trying to get off the highway to get away from these idiots as well. So it's like all you're doing is just pissing off regular people. You're not sending a message to anybody. You're just pissing off the people that you want to be your allies, which is one of the places where it's like clearly this is not a well organized thing. Not well organized. They did exactly what they wanted to do, which is they got a whole bunch of media attention. It's not organized to the end of like exactly what you're saying. It's like they don't actually care about the thing that they're saying that they care about. And we're driving
It's just a reason to
and
get angry. Yeah.
yeah, and it's just Canada flag, Canada flag, Canada flag, and Cara's like, oh, look at all the Canada flags. Like she's excited by it. It's like a parade to her, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in amongst these Canadian flags, and one would be enough to really piss me off. And I definitely when I'm driving in a car with my kids, it's like this is like I'm more mad because they're there, but also like I'm less inclined to do things like roll down my window and scream things at neo Nazis. Because my kids are in the car. But I saw 3 different vehicles with neo Nazi symbolism on them. So a lot of black lightning bolts, which is a really common piece of iconography for neo Nazis, because you can't put like a swastika on your car, right? Because if you put a swastika on your car, everybody knows what you're talking about, right? But if you put a Canadian flag like a maple leaf and then there's a black lightning bolt through the maple leaf, there's a lot of people who don't realize what that means. But like that black lightning bolt is like that's a Nazi piece of Nazi iconography that's definitely like co-opted by neo-Nazis. But in any case, like I saw 3 very obvious, very recognizable, very prominently displayed neo-Nazi symbols on cars. I in the 15 minutes that I was on the highway. But before we could get off the highway, and like let me tell you, I was like the kind of angry that's like physical, that's like
Yeah.
like you feel like a pot boiling over sort of thing. And like if Kara were older, she would be able to tell you that like it was just expletives. Like I was just swearing just every which way from Sunday. Like I couldn't keep it in. I was so mad that this stupid protest was screwing up our Saturday, that we were going to be late for dance class. Because they give you such a hard time when you're late for dance class. Other dads will know. I feel like as a dad, you get it even worse because it's like, oh, it's not important to you. It's like, no, it's just as important to me as it is to anybody else. Like, I care. And then to see like Nazis just driving down the street in 2022 in Canada,
Yeah.
and for other people to be driving by honking in support because they've so cleverly masked this neo-Nazi rally, like this white supremacist, white nationalist rally, behind something that seems like something, because I've seen people on my Facebook feed that like I know that they don't realize what they're supporting. They
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
they're supporting workers' rights, basically, right?
Yeah. Yeah. They think they're speaking for the blue collar
Yeah,
and the hard a day, work a day. I don't know
yeah, but
how to
at
say it, but
best, you're supporting anti-vaxxers. At best, you're supporting anti-vaxxers. Let's pretend that the Nazis didn't poop in the pool. At best, you're supporting anti-vaxxers because that's their whole thing, is they don't want to get vaccinated, so like the rules are screwing up their livelihoods. It's like, okay, it is your choice whether you get vaccinated or not. You have freedom of choice. But it is dumb to be an anti-vaxxer in this very specific circumstance. It's dumb to be an anti-vaxxer in any circumstance, in my opinion. But like very specifically, as we've talked about so many times on the podcast, we have a scientific breakthrough of a revolutionary vaccine
yeah.
that is literally saving thousands of lives. That like so many people around you have gotten this vaccine. They are not being controlled by the government. They aren't generating 5G frequencies. They aren't turning into alien squid monsters. They're not dying. They're not getting COVID and dying from COVID. They're getting it and it's very mild, and they're generally okay. Right? Like, and
Yeah.
again, that's anecdotal. I haven't read anything that's really like supporting that just yet, but that is the anecdotal evidence, is that hospitalization rates, the number is astronomically high in British Columbia right now. It's the highest it's been since the beginning of the pandemic, but but the rate compared to the number of people who are actually getting infected versus how many are in the hospital is lower than it was. Still overwhelming the healthcare system. We should still all be safe. We should still all wear masks and limit contact, go out only when you need to, all that sort of stuff. But I all like there is all of this, not even scientific evidence, but just like there is scientific evidence like coming out of every orifice that we've got. We have scientific evidence that the vaccines are doing their job and that they're good and that they're healthy and that they're safe. I I but also just like turn to your left, turn to your right. Those people are vaccinated and they're okay. Right? And like if they
Yeah.
say a bad thing about the government, their head doesn't explode. It's not like these things that people, the conspiracy theory nonsense. It's like you have no reason to feel or believe that stuff other than unless it fits another agenda. So it's like I said, like at best you are an anti-vaxxer, at worst you are a Nazi. You
Yeah.
are like a Nazi, and I just take the word neo right off of it because you're just a Nazi. Because I feel like when we say neo-Nazi, there's like, it's like, oh, you're like a skinhead punk. No, the majority of people that I'm seeing that are identifying with this actually look like very average people. They do not look like,
Yeah.
I oh man, what's the movie with Ed Norton? You know the one that I'm talking about.
Fight Club.
No, not Fight Club. Good God.
It's a movie with Ed Norton. And
American History X, I think, is
oh
the
yeah,
movie that
oh
I'm
yeah,
thinking
the
of.
one with Nazis in it.
Yeah, the one with Nazis, Amanda. Good gravy. I like. I think that when we say neo-Nazi, we think of that. We think of like skinheads in
Yes.
prisons. Like that's what
Yeah.
pop culture has told us that. I man, I can never remember the name of this damn movie. What's Harry Potter's name? Daniel Radcliffe, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, that is
Radcliffe,
correct.
like a super awesome cliff. Daniel Radcliffe. What's the? It's in Imperium.
Praetorium.
It's Imperium.
Okay.
I watch the movie Imperium
All right.
because like that movie is from 2016. That movie will help explain to you like how bad the problem is because it's based on true events. Um, it's a dramatization. It goes a
Daniel
little bit
Radcliffe does
further,
some
but
interesting things in his movie choices because
Daniel
I
Radcliffe
don't know.
does nothing but interesting stuff nowadays. He
Yeah.
just does the things that he's like, this will be fun. He's playing
Yeah.
Weird Al Yankovic for God's sake.
Uh,
We don't,
yeah.
we can't talk about that in the middle of talking about Nazis. It is
Okay.
exciting though.
Sorry.
When we get a trailer, we
Sorry.
will talk about it for sure. Daniel Radcliffe is yeah. Who would have thought that Harry Potter would have turned around and given us all of these amazing performances in these crazy movies? But Imperium, he's an FBI. Um, I think he's actually like an analyst or something like that. But he's like the right type to like, and he knows the ins and outs of it because he's been like listening to their wiretaps and whatever. Um, to infiltrate these neo-Nazi organizations
Mm,
in order to find out, like, try and figure out what, like, are they planning something and when are they going to do it, where are they going to do it, sort of thing.
right.
Um, and he gets in really deep with it, and it's like, where does the cover end and where does it begin, sort
Right.
of thing. It's a really great movie. It's really, really good, but
Cool.
it'll give you a really good idea of the makeup of some of these organizations and the way that they are just like comprised of like what appear to be very average middle American type of folks. And my anecdotal evidence from Saturday is that I didn't see skinheads in those cars. They just look like um
My cousins. I don't know. I
they
feel
just look
like.
like white people that you would make
Mhm.
fun of for being white. I'm gonna say
Yeah.
that instead of using any of the terminology that we would classically use to categorize those people. But that's
Hmm.
what they look like, pretty average Canadians in my opinion. Um, and that's kind of it's the terrifying thing is like if there were that many of them that were bold enough to put those logos on their cars, how many of the people in that lineup were not, they were bold enough to be out there but not bold enough to put a Nazi symbol on their car, right? um
Hmm.
yeah, or bold enough or dumb enough, take your pick. It's kind of the same thing in this instance. But I tweeted something earlier tonight because I've been thinking about this, and I've heard other people talk about it, and other stuff on social media that's basically like look around, like if the side that you're on, if Nazis also show up to support your side, you're
Yeah.
you're
Maybe you
you're
should.
on the
Yeah.
wrong side. You're on the wrong side. Doesn't matter
Hmm.
what the issue is. If the Nazis show up and they're like, "We agree," you've made a mistake. You that's an error in judgment, and you're gonna need to call Mulligan on that one. Because you done goofed this time. And my analogy for people to understand, because there's a lot of people going like, "Well, it's not the majority of us, right? Like they're just showing
Hmm.
up, and it's their choice. Like they have the freedom to show up to the same protest or whatever." And it's like, yeah, you're right. They do. They absolutely do. And you have the freedom to leave when you see them show up. Just like when someone poops in the pool, you don't like look over at the poop across the pool and go, well, the poop's all the way over there, and I'm all the way over here. And this is water that I'm swimming in. And that's water that the poop is in. And the water is connected, but like I'm not swimming in the poop, right? So I'm
Right.
okay. And it's like, no, you're swimming in poop water. The second that the
You get out.
poop hits the water, you got to get out of the pool. And the right and responsible thing to do is to get the poop out of the pool
Then
first,
remove the poop. Yeah, and then get
drain the water, clean it, and then fill it back up, and we can resume swimming once we've dealt with the systemic issue of poop being in the pool. Right? Right. We don't
That's
hang
actually a
out
really good analogy,
in
Mike.
the pool with the
I'm
poop.
impressed. I'm
We
impressed.
like it just it really
Nazis are poop.
it really bothers me. Yeah, it's a perfect
So you
analogy because
understand.
Nazis are literal excrement. Like they are
Mhm.
human piles of feces. I it really frustrates and angers me that in the year 2022 that I have to go to that length to express to some people that when Nazis show up to your party is over. Your party is finished. That's not your party anymore. Now it's a
Yeah.
Nazi rally. You are now at a Nazi rally. And if you are at a Nazi rally, we can't be friends anymore. Like if you're willingly, decidedly gonna hang out in the same company as Nazis, if you're listening to this podcast and you are doing that, unless you're like one of those people that's not one of those people, but like unless you have a very good reason that you're like trying to get into these groups in order to like turn people. There's a oh man, I can't remember what show it was. I think was it Kamau Bell's show. I can't remember, but somebody interviewed a guy that is like he basically goes to like clan meetings. I think he was
Oh, to try to like.
I don't want to misspeak too much, but I think that he's a black guy. And he would like go to clan meetings basically and like hang out and get to know these guys, not necessarily to like humanize them. And he talked about, I remember this in this interview, it was like on a podcast or something. I think it was politically reactive. That was the
I can't help
podcast.
you because I don't know what it is that you are.
Yeah, I know I don't expect you to, but and he would go at like and he was always like riding the line and like conscious of like the danger of like I don't want to humanize these people for me, but I want them to humanize me sort of thing. Like he would like actively like basically like go into the shark infested waters to like teach the sharks not to eat people.
Right.
Sharks don't eat people anyways. That's a bad analogy. Look, I did the Nazis
I
are
can't
poop.
believe that you just like hated on sharks like that in that analogy.
You
just
get
compared
one good
sharks to-
one.
There you go.
You get one
Yeah.
good analogy every episode. I already used it.
Yeah.
But you
You
guys
used
get
it.
what I'm getting at. Like
I
it
get it.
illustrated my point.
You hate sharks. That's all we need to know, Mike.
Yeah, I do. Oh my god, sharks are the worst. No, I'm kidding.
Sharks are great.
Sharks are very misunderstood animals. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Unlike Nazis.
Yeah.
Nazis are understood, and
no, we understand Nazis. They have a manifesto. It's like they're like, please understand us, and we're just like, no. We understand you. That is actually one of the core problems. Is that what you're saying is actually very easy to understand. It's just reprehensible and disgusting.
Mm-hmm.
If you're hanging out with Nazis, if you're friends with Nazis, if you're even just like choosing to be adjacent to Nazis at the same event, I'm not really interested in having a conversation with you or being friends with you or having you listen to the podcast, which is unfortunate. Hate to see you go, but I don't know. Go listen to Joe Rogan, I guess, is my advice on that one, because he's really interested in giving everybody a fair say, including Nazis, science deniers, Trump supporters, idiots, crazy people from the side of the road. That's cancel your Spotify account. Everybody.
Yeah.
That was the thing. It made me so proud because I have a Spotify account, but I've never paid for Spotify. I've never even done a free trial of Spotify Premium.
Really?
Yeah, because I'm like deep into the Apple ecosystem, so it's like there's nothing that Spotify can do to move the needle
bring you into it
for me.
That's
it's
good.
like I'd sooner go to like Google Music or Amazon Music before I go to Spotify.
I'm trying to figure out where I'm going to go because I am on Spotify.
Mm-hmm.
That is my thing. But it connects to my Google Home. And so here's the thing. What I'm gonna talk about is the hardest part about being a privileged white person in Canada.
Yeah.
And hearing about terrible things that happen. How do we navigate apathy? Because it is really easy for me on Saturday to be listening to my Spotify, sitting downtown at the art gallery as I'm about to go to see the first folio of William Shakespeare, listening to this protest and being on my Spotify and being like, but I'm not part of the problem. Like, I'm not at the protest and I'm vaccinated and I don't listen to Joe Rogan. So what's the harm in me sitting here and listening to my Spotify account, right? And then just being like, that in and of itself is the problem, in that I consider myself a fairly progressive individual.
Yeah.
And it has been 4 days and I still haven't canceled my Spotify.
Yeah.
Because for me, I'm like, ugh, it requires me to go and reconnect something different to my Google Home. Because I literally, the only thing I use my Google for is music.
Yeah.
And the only music app I have is Spotify. So I just have to change, like, it's a small thing. I just have to go in and find a different music service, pay for it, reconnect it, and unhook Spotify. It's not going to take that long. But you get caught up in stuff and then you wake and I'm like, oh, but I'm tired today and I have all this stuff. And you navigate the world and I'm like, I know that I'm making the world a little bit worse by not canceling my Spotify account. I know that I am. And so it's just this guilt that I live with and I go, but I'm not as bad as the Nazis, right? I don't know, right, Mike? It's terrible.
It is really tough to make those incremental small change actions in a world where we are dealing with literal Nazis, right? Because it's like the extremes are so extreme. Because even like to the other side of it, it's like, well, we're also not like anarchists out there, starting fights as part of a extremist left-wing agenda, right? So it's like it's really easy to look at it and go, well, I'm just living my life. I think the thing with Spotify is that, like, Joe Rogan has from one article that I read, I think a $10 million contract with them.
Yeah, it's something gross. But also above that, because my friend was
talking about, he shouldn't be getting that money to begin with from anybody.
No.
Even if he wasn't talking to Nazis and science deniers, he shouldn't be getting that much money because he's Joe Rogan. His UFC opinions are not worth that much money, you guys.
Yeah, I don't know. I just it's the thing is too, like, it's like, well, what, you just have to go to the lesser of two evils. It's like Apple Music isn't great. Apple Music is probably paying a lot of money to some terrible people, but it hasn't been probably. Like everybody is, right? So you just have to sort of figure out and be like, okay, I actually need to do something that actually makes a difference. So now I need to go research and be like, okay, which streaming services actually aren't, harming other things, right? Because every choice, it's the good place, right? Everything you do is a little terrible because the world is a complicated place.
Yeah.
And you have to just make it work. So anyways, you are allowed to get mad at me if the next time we talk on a podcast I'm still on Spotify, because
okay, I mean, like, I'll hold you to that, but I also don't think it's that big of a deal to have a Spotify account. I don't. It's at the same time that I'm like, I'm glad that people are sending this message. I've hated Joe Rogan for a really long time, for reasons like this. I like it. I like that people are sending Spotify a message that they need to be more responsible with their platform. At the same time, like I don't think that the Joe Rogan experience has been deplatformed from Apple Podcasts.
Anything else?
Apple's not paying him $10 million. To make podcasts. So it's like,
and that's the difference. Here's the difference,
right?
You can have contrary viewpoints on whatever platforms you want, right? Because that is sort of what makes the world complex and allows us to have conversations and engage critically with one another. But when you pay lots of money to elevate those viewpoints, that's where you pay attention to which viewpoints are being elevated, and where you then as a consumer decide to put your own resources and support that, right? Because it's not as if, I don't think people are calling to censor Joe Rogan. I mean, many people are, I'm sure, but it's just that you have to understand like the responsibility that we have as consumers,
Yeah.
because as the world gets more and more globalized, right, and countries can do less and less to control stuff, the thing that is going to control the world is the economy, and it's going to be what you pay for, what money you put in. You have the power to change the world with what it is. Because I, as much as I know that capitalism is terrible, am a capitalist, because I believe that money will change a lot of things. And so we have a responsibility to be thoughtful about what it is that we pay for and where we put our resources and our money. So I don't know.
Yep.
I don't know how much. I just, again, that everything is so terrible. This weekend I actually spent some time reading a book that takes place in 1946 that's basically talking about actual Nazis and the atrocities of the World War. And then sitting here being like, how, even in that, right? Even in the book, right, where they're talking about how did they let this happen again after they dealt with it in 1918, we just never really learn. We never really get better as a society. But I think now that the voices are louder and that we're more connected because of technology, we have the ability to swing one way or another. And we just have to, I don't know. The thing that gets me through is that I have to believe at the end of the day that positive things and that hope and love and joy and connectivity is going to win out over vitriol and hatred. So
Yeah.
it's hard to be like, I know that everybody just wants to make the world a better place in the way that they think it should be, but somebody's opinion and world could make the world a lot worse for everybody else, and they just don't see it. And that's the thing that sucks, right? There are good people that do terrible things,
Yeah.
and they don't even think that it's terrible, right? Because they don't understand the context of the decision that they are making.
Yeah. I don't. This is where it gets tricky, because I don't completely lack empathy for people who find themselves in these groups, any kind of like white nationalist group, whether it's Nazis or KKK or whatever, because I do think those groups are specifically engineered to prey on vulnerable people.
Vulnerable, yeah.
And so there are a lot of people who feel like they don't have anywhere else to go, they don't have anywhere to belong. I do think that there's a white American identity that since the 80s has been very steeped in personal wealth, and because of that, if you don't have personal wealth, you are very susceptible to rhetoric, right?
Yeah.
That Trump
Yeah.
comes out and says, well, it's the Mexicans coming up and taking your jobs, that's why you don't have anything. And it's like, I think that we all, like, it doesn't take a lot of time to really like look at that, to investigate that and think about it. But you know, and to realize that that's not true. But also the Republicans have systemically like defunded public education in the United States.
Well, and disenfranchised a lot of people
But
that they
it,
don't.
not just like to disenfranchise people, like that's the
Yeah.
thing, is that like we built a society in the like post World War II that's like, hey, get a high school education, get a post-secondary education, and there will be a job for you, right? And then since the Reagan era, really, it's like, well, we're gonna put up roadblocks and we're gonna dismantle systems to allow regular people access to those things,
Yeah.
so that like, hey, if you're a person of color, hey, if you are a person below a certain poverty line, the likelihood of you finishing high school is going to be lower, right? The likelihood of you getting into a post-secondary institution is going to be lower by virtue of that first fact, right? The likelihood of you, like, it's just like a cascading thing of like, you're not going
On
to
and on
finish
and on.
post-secondary, you're not going to get a good job, you're not going to be on a career track, you're going to be working in a minimum wage position, and or nothing, or you're not going to be working, or and you're going to fall deeper into that poverty, like deeper, like further and further below that poverty line, and then you are in the exact right place for someone like Trump to come along and say this is all someone's fault. And it's like, yeah, it absolutely is. But it's like, don't look at the people underneath you that you're stepping on. It's not their fault. The crap that's
Mm-hmm.
rolling downhill didn't come from the people underneath you. Right. And it doesn't take a lot to work that out. But I think it's really easy when you are disenfranchised to turn around and look at other groups, at other minority groups, and and if somebody points the finger at them, it's really easy to go, well, there it is, right?
Yeah.
Well, that person, like, again, we've created this, the white American identity is that you're rich because you pulled yourself up by your bootstraps and you earned it. So money equals worth. Money equals like like value of a human being, right? So Donald Trump has money. Therefore, Donald Trump's ideas are better than the ideas of someone who does not have money. Right? That's the situation that we're in because of the way that society is structured. Just the way that we see, like, in particular, white people see other white people. So when Donald Trump says it's their fault, and he doesn't even need to say who, he just says them, he just points a finger, right? Him and all of his lackeys now, because he's not allowed to talk very much anymore, but like, they just say it's them, and then everybody just fills in the blank of who them happens to be, and it's whoever pissed you off last. Honestly, like, it's crazy, but like, it is. So, like, I have empathy for people in those situations, because they don't want to be in that situation any more than I want them to be there. But also, like, how do we undo this? Like, how do
Yeah.
you dismantle those systems without dismantling capitalism? It's really like, because
You
capitalism
don't,
is
is what
built
many
on
people would
top of
say.
it, right? Yeah, like, and these
Yeah.
things are foundational to capitalism, which is that, like, in order to like this is Orwellian stuff, and it makes it, because Orwell is considered science fiction, it makes this stuff sound insane when we talk about it this way. But quite literally, the aristocracy is using race politics to control the proletariat. Like, that's what's happening there, is that people with money who run the government, not elected officials, right? Because the elected officials can only do so much. The ones with their hearts in the right place and their heads in the right place can only do so much, because they can't fight against the lobby groups, which are run by the
Yeah.
aristocracy, right?
Yeah.
And like, it just it's how do we undo that without just, yeah, getting rid of capitalism, which, like, I am a capitalist as well, and I'm a capitalist not by choice but just by circumstance, because of that privilege, and because I'm worried about my
Yeah.
kids, right?
Yeah.
And that's super selfish, but it is what it is, and it's one of those things where it's like, well, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? Am I gonna like cast off all of this and start,
Go live
a
on an island
commune?
somewhere.
And yeah,
Yeah,
like,
there you go.
I don't know. Maybe that'd be nice, actually.
But
I
this
don't
is
know.
like, this is why we just try to be the best people that we can be, and we talk about it, and we,
Yeah.
you know, I am very grateful to everybody who's still listening to us after our brief foray into Nazi chat on
Yeah.
our pop culture podcast, where we can talk about frivolous things. But I think exactly what you're talking about, Orwellian, right? I think that that's why I enjoy podcasting so much and talking about pop culture, because I think there is so much that art can do to shape the world, and that we
Mhm.
put these big ideas on screens and let people react to them and let people bask in them, and it's why we talk about how movies move us, and like, what is it, catharsis and all of that stuff, right? When it's like, what is the point of art? It always had been, way back in Greek tragedies, right? They existed to entertain and then to tell a story that was a moral, imperative of what was happening at the time in their society that people wanted them to think critically about. And so, as much as I complain to Mike about talking about Nazis on our podcast, it is important, and I will say,
Yeah.
because it always has been. That is the whole purpose. So let's watch some Orwell and reflect upon those terrible things and try to do better as we go forward, and talk about something like Peacemaker,
Yeah.
which totally I feel is relevant to these conversations
And
when
that's
you
the
have,
thing.
right?
Because we did have a little bit of a conversation yesterday when you were here, and we watched. Oh man, somehow we ran down a lot of different movies that we could have watched last night, and
Yeah, so many.
somehow we landed on Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest, which is the second one.
Yeah.
Because not that long ago, and I think I maybe even mentioned it on the podcast, but I had watched the Black Pearl. What is it? It's Curse of the Black Pearl, I think,
Curse of the
is
Black
the
Pearl,
first
yeah.
one, and was like, oh my god, I forgot how good this movie is. Like, this movie
Yeah.
is
It's a fun movie.
fantastic.
It's super great. Yeah.
And so it was like, well, let's go. And you know what? I think I'm gonna blame the Matrix on this one, because I think that our experience with the Matrix series now, uh,
Yeah. Was
over the
positive.
last month,
Yeah.
is like, oh my god, like, I've been so wrong about these movies for so long. So I think, like, I'm just willing to give certain things another try. So it was like, oh, I had watched the first one with Cara, and she really liked it, and so it was like, oh, let's do this. It was something that we all agreed on. So we're like, let's go. And then it was not very good. but
And
but
2.5 hours long.
2.5 hours of not very good movie, not very good storytelling. But Davy Jones from
Oh,
2006
yeah.
holds up.
Yeah.
Holds up. That effect is impeccable, you guys. Anyways, when you were
It's
over
great.
yesterday and we were talking about,
Yeah.
and I was like, oh, we're gonna have to talk about Nazis tomorrow, and you're like, oh, I don't want to, but also, like, yeah, I guess we need to. And I was like, in the back of my head going like, but you want to talk about Peacemaker and Suicide Squad? We cannot
Yeah.
we can't
Talk
talk
about,
about,
yeah.
and you're only 2 episodes into Peacemaker. I'm caught up to the 5 episodes that are out. There is no way to talk about Peacemaker without talking about Nazis, um, which I think you'll learn more about as you get further into this show.
Well, I mean,
But
yeah, I mean, in the second one, you sort of they set it up, and and I
yeah,
mean, knowing, because I Wikipedia it all before I go in to figure out who all the characters are and stuff. I get
yeah.
the gist of, it, and I don't know, it's fascinating, but it is very. I mean, it's unfortunate that it's so
It's
topical, right?
it's the thing that I love about it so much, and I'm gonna try not to spoil anything from the next 3 episodes for you, and just kind of try and talk in some generalities and stuff about the characters and the dynamics. But
Yeah.
um, much like Suicide Squad, Peacemaker is a bunch of misfits, right? And in
Hmm.
particular, you've got Peacemaker and Vigilante, who are characters who think of themselves, they see themselves as heroes, but their actions are more in line with villains. Um,
Hmm.
and Vigilante, as they have crafted him in this show. I can't wait for you to get further into it, Amanda, because I think you're really gonna
I
like
know,
his
because
character.
I only saw the
Yeah.
first little bit because he's only really in the second episode. Yeah.
He is a sociopath. He's a psychopathic, sociopathic serial killer who puts on an outfit and pretends to be a superhero. Like, in his mind, what he's doing is just, it's good. He is a good guy. He's a superhero. Like he's a
Self-proclaimed.
described
Yeah.
superhero, right? So much like Peacemaker, and it's great. You guys know if you've been listening to this podcast for any length of time, you know I love a foil. Like it is my favorite literary device to have two characters in a story that reflect each other in some way, so that like one can learn more about themselves or the other, right? And
Yeah.
Peacemaker, in order for him to become a real hero, like the hero that he thinks that he is and wants to be, he needs this mirror up to him to reflect back to him these things that are actually like his shortcomings. And Vigilante, because Vigilante in the comics is a bunch of different things, and we saw in on Arrow that they completely reinterpreted the character, and they actually split him into two. You had Vigilante, and then you had Adrian Chase, right? And
Mhm.
Adrian Chase was one of the best villains on the show.
Oh, so good.
So good, so good. And then Vigilante was such a forgettable
Ugh.
element
Yeah.
of that, like that like if you, oh yeah, that yeah, Vigilante was an Arrow.
Yeah. It took me. As you're talking about it, I was like, oh
Yeah,
yeah.
and then they like, because they played with it for a little while of like, is Adrian Chase Vigilante, and they subverted it because in the comics Vigilante is Adrian Chase, but then they ended up making the Vigilante Dinah's ex-boyfriend, whatever, the whole thing.
Ugh, that was terrible. That was a
It was
terrible
awful,
choice.
it was
Yeah,
awful.
it was all good. But
They
Adrian
should have
Chase was
just,
good, and I stick by that. That was a good.
yeah, but
That was a
Adrian
good
Chase
spot.
was fantastic.
Yeah.
But so that this interpretation in this, like they've really like pushed him into this like, some people have like compared him to Deadpool, where like I get that, I see it, but I also like he is enough of his own thing that I think it's good. And there's a purpose for him existing in the way that he does, right? He is like, he's willing to cross lines that even Peacemaker isn't. And if we remember Peacemaker in Suicide Squad, one of his best lines is like, I'm fight for peace, and even if I have to kill every man, woman, and child to get it, or
Yeah.
whatever, right? Like whatever it is that he says, they echo it back to him in the series premiere, right? And it's like putting him with Vigilante. It's like they really force him to like look at himself and go like, is that the way that I'm looking at him, is that how other people see me? But then on top of it, this other layer of like his Peacemaker's dad who is like evil in a way, but not he is not he's not going around killing people like Vigilante and Peacemaker are, right? He's
Yeah.
not just like shooting people in the face and, like really proud of their marksmanship skills and murdering people and that sort of thing, but presents as like pure evil in certain respects.
Hmm.
And so you're looking at it and you're going like, Vigilante and Peacemaker are bad guys, but his dad is evil. What's the
Right.
difference?
Yeah. Yeah.
Where does that line fall? And can bad guys do good things versus can an evil person be redeemed or be good, right? Like, and sort of
Right.
like
Yeah.
painting these two things. And like, I I'm all for redemption storylines. I don't think that's where they're going to go with Peacemaker's dad in this story, but it would be interesting if they did. I don't think they will. He's pretty unforgivable in the things that he's said and done in this series. But man, like James Gunn is just like, he is crafting such an amazing narrative with these characters. And I said as I was sitting down to watch the first episode, like, this is an uphill battle. Rick Flag is my favorite character from the Suicide Squad movies. Like we talked about it last week, didn't we? Joel Kinnaman. I think I talked about him for like 10 minutes, 2 weeks ago,
On
right?
the previous, not last week, but the
Yeah,
other
yeah.
week. Yes.
I and I think I said, like, like it's an uphill battle of like, you
Yeah.
got it to convince me to watch a show about Peacemaker, like after what he did in Suicide Squad. It's like, and basically the way that happens, the way that plays out. And yet, like, here I am 5 episodes into the show, and And like I said, if anybody can do it, it's John Cena and James Gunn. And I was right, 100%. Because now, like the depth of the character and the performance from John Cena is not something that I was expecting. I knew that it would be good. Like I knew that there would be more to him, that he'd be a more well-rounded character. I didn't expect to believe John Cena's performance this much.
Oh wow.
Because he's John Cena, right? Like The
Yeah,
Rock,
yeah. He's a little
like
ridiculous. Yeah.
like anybody who comes from that background, that professional wrestling background, and makes that jump over into film and television, into like actual, like, not actual acting. Professional wrestling is actual acting, as proven
Yeah.
by these amazing actors, uh, 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 Dwayne Johnson, John Cena, Batista, right? Like
Yeah.
Batista's given some ridiculously good performances in the last 5 years since doing
Yeah.
Guardians of the Galaxy, right? Like just like he's blown me away in, like, working with Denis Villeneuve in Blade Runner 2049
Oh,
and
interesting.
2049, is
Dune.
it 24? It's maybe it's another year, but and uh and in Dune.
Dune.
He's so good in those. And it's like there's like the guys who rise to the top of that professional wrestling world, like they've got the chops. They can transition into this stuff. And I should have expected it from John Cena because he's been good in other stuff. But like he's taken that character to another place where, like, I am actually pulling for him. I am rooting for him. I want him to go through this transformation and become, I don't want him to change entirely. I don't want him to lose what makes Peacemaker Peacemaker, but I do want the character to grow and become better, right? And that's like
Yeah.
that's the whole point, right? That's why we, like you were saying about, like this is why we tell stories, is like there's these morals and showing that growth of someone with some very ignorant, ill-informed, uh hurtful, problematic views, growing into a better person because of the people that they're surrounded with.
Yeah.
um it's a good story. That's a good story. That's a fantastic story to be telling today. And the Nazi elements of it, it's so perfect for what's going on in our world right now, because I think it really is illustrating the point of what I was talking about, of like, of having that empathy, and then maybe trying to recognize which people are worth putting the effort in for and which people aren't.
Right.
Because I do
Right.
think that there are people on the other side of some of these arguments that are definitely worth putting in the effort for, and saying, like, trying to meet them where they're at and have conversation, and just try and move the needle bit by bit. But then there are
Yeah.
other people where it's like, yeah, I guess you've clearly made your decision, and I'm not the person who can fix this, right? Not that anybody is the person who can fix another person. You have to do that work yourself. But I can't be
To
a
convince you that
facilitator
you
in
want
this
to fix it.
relationship,
Yeah.
right? Like, it's
Yeah.
not going
Yeah.
to work. This, like, my role in this dynamic isn't that, right?
Yeah.
So I do think that, like the show is actually kind of painting a picture of, like, that type of situation, like that type of dynamic. um and looking at it and going, like, can we save Peacemaker? Can we save Vigilante? Like, are they so far gone that they're uh
Irredeemable. Yeah.
irredeemable and, like, outside of society in some way? Like do we have to
Hmm.
put them in another category? Yeah, it's
Well, I
such a good
mean,
show.
that
And then it's
I will
also
say, because
hilarious. It's also so
yeah,
funny.
it is.
So
Yeah. The
uh
opening, if you haven't seen it though,
oh
too,
my god.
and you don't want to, just watch the opening credits.
Yeah.
It's cute and funny. I don't know. I think that's cool, and so it's just like something to worth watching. But the thing that always gets me the most about the Suicide Squad is the Amanda Waller character, mostly
Mm,
because she's the only like comic book character that's named Amanda that I have any like knowledge of. So I always am very critical of like the Amanda Waller character. I think it's such an interesting, she's just such an interesting conundrum, because you're like, well, what does it mean to be a good guy versus a bad guy versus a villain versus a hero?
mhm.
I don't know. I think it's very interesting. So I'm excited. I'm gonna keep watching. I'm gonna keep watching Peacemaker for sure. I might wait till it's all out and then just like sit through and like watch them all together. But yeah, I've been enjoying it. So
Oh, it's
I'm
fun
glad.
week to week.
I'm glad I finally watched Suicide Squad because that was something that just took me way too long to watch.
Yeah.
And was so fun because I didn't realize that it was Starro, and Starro, I only know about Starro because of the DC card game, and it was really cool to see Starro as a like realized villain, which is cool. Also
Yeah.
creepy as heck. I don't know if people have all seen Suicide Squad, but you should watch Suicide Squad. It's fun and creepy, and but also just like it's just a fun movie. It's fun. And I love it when they put effort into misdirects. So I don't know, people can take that for what they will. I don't want to spoil Suicide Squad if you haven't seen it yet. But I don't know.
Yeah. Are we are we still in spoiler territory with Suicide Squad? I feel like it's been long enough
maybe
that we can talk about
it
it
has
freely,
been a very long time, but I feel like I don't need to actively spoil
but-
Suicide Squad for anybody. People
yeah.
can still watch it. I didn't need to talk about anything specific to get my point across because I didn't have a specific point. So there you go.
It's so fantastic that we are in a world. I mean, so much of the world that we're in right now is awful and horrendous. But one of the bright spots, one of the silver linings that we have, is that James Gunn got fired for very stupid reasons from the MCU. So DC was able to grab him for a hot minute and make Suicide Squad, and then the rest of us were able to shout louder than the idiots that got him fired in the first place, and Disney made the right call. And I mean, like, I'm gonna put a lot of the blame of that on Kevin Feige for sorting that mess out and getting him reinstated. um and and we are also getting Guardians Volume 3, which they are currently filming, and Peacemaker. like Suicide Squad led to Peacemaker, which is going to lead to more James Gunn DC stuff. But like, when he's finished with Guardians Volume 3, it would be a shame if he's done with the MCU. Like, let him tell some more, let him do something else. Let him do Howard the Duck once he's done Guardians of the Galaxy, right? Like, man, a James Gunn Howard the Duck. And I'm just gonna throw this out there. I don't say this a lot because it's usually the rallying cry of the dim-witted and testosterone deficient. But I really want, if they were to do Howard the Duck and James Gunn were to write and direct that, I would want that to be an R. Not for violence and not for gratuitous sexual stuff, but just so that we can do the stuff with Howard the Duck that Howard the Duck kind of deserves in order to do those stories right. If you've ever seen the Howard the Duck movie from the 80s, it gets real close. It sidles right up alongside some of those more controversial points about the character of Howard the Duck, and then slightly dodges them. Maybe in some instances doesn't. But yeah, Howard the Duck is a character that needs that freedom to roam. Just let him kind of do his thing. And I think that you can with Deadpool, because we know that Deadpool 3 is coming and that it will be part of the MCU. Knowing that is going to be a part of
I
the
didn't
MCU.
know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that it will be part of
the
MCU.
Ryan Reynolds said as much, and I think that Kevin Feige may have even said a couple of things.
Nice.
Yeah, that they're making it, and like now it's like and it will be part of the MCU.
Cool.
That's the one where it's like, and we've talked about this with Deadpool before. How can it not be? Right? A character that addresses the audience, that breaks the fourth wall, he has to talk about. Right? I mean, like remember in it's in the first Deadpool, right? They fight on a helicarrier at the end of the movie. And
I think so, yeah.
It's like,
no, it's a ship. No, they fight on a ship.
No, Amanda, it's a helicarrier. It is.
Really?
We never see it's like it's wrecked, but there are turbines on the side of it. Like it's not it's not an MCU helicarrier, but it
Oh,
is a
but it's a
helicarrier,
helicarrier.
right?
Okay.
And it's
That was
one of
just
those things that they put in there as like an Easter egg sort of thing, and they don't draw
gotcha.
attention to it, but it is definitely there. And it's the sort of thing where like if, in a Deadpool 3 scenario, they're gonna address some of that stuff for sure.
Right.
And the X-Men of it all, and you know the continuity changes, whatever they end up being. Um, so yeah, in a world where we know that we're gonna get that, I think to get Howard the Duck as well would be a real
Do you
nice
think that
treat.
he'll be in MCU proper, or would he be like? Because I'm thinking like, which is the best Spider-Man to play off of Ryan Reynolds' Deadpool?
Oh yeah, I don't know. I mean like not to spoil No Way Home, but post No Way Home, Tom Holland for sure,
Okay.
because because I know where you want to go with that is Andrew Garfield. But the Andrew
100%.
Garfield Spider-Man is too funny to play off against Deadpool, right?
I mean,
What you
I
want
guess.
against Deadpool is a straight man. That's why the Deadpool Colossus relationship works so well in those movies, right? So
Yeah.
if you look at the Tom Holland Spider-Man, the one that's like hi, I'm Spider-Man, hi, I'm Stephen Strange, oh, we're using our made up names, then I'm Spider-Man.
Right. Yeah.
That Spider-Man with Deadpool,
It's so
especially
so
like
earnest. The
the earnest,
earnestness.
but
Yeah.
let's put him in a little bit of a darker place emotionally right now, and put him
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
Deadpool, who's more of a dark humor kind of guy, and like let's see what that dynamic looks like. Like spoilers
Yeah.
for No Way Home if you haven't seen No Way Home, but not really for No Way Home, but for the post credit scene in No Way Home. Okay, if you're still here, you're gonna get spoiled. Black suit Tom Holland Spider Man next to Deadpool, Ryan Reynolds Deadpool.
Oh.
Those are two
Huh.
great tastes that taste great together. That's definitely a story that I could see happening. That said,
Okay.
I think that they'll use Deadpool. I mean, I think what they'll end up doing is that they will bring Deadpool and his characters, the ones that are still alive, fully into the MCU. And I think whatever the incarnation of the X-Men is, Negasonic Teenage Warhead and Colossus are a part of that. They just are.
Oh, interesting.
Because you can't get rid of those characters if you've got Ryan Reynolds Deadpool, and I think you
Right.
bring Zazie Beetz back as Domino as well, and I think like that, like those are your two main characters for the movie, and then you bring in those other characters as supporting characters, um, and and you can change them slightly in order to make them fit into the MCU a little bit more. I personally think they already do. I think that Colossus actually fits in the MCU more than he fits in the Fox X-Men
The
stuff.
other. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Especially in Deadpool 2, like the costume, like the full Colossus outfit and everything, like yeah, he's way more MCU than he is Fox X-Men. Um and the Russian accent and all of that stuff, like he's actually the legit version of the character and not some weird watered down photocopy of a photocopy. I Nightcrawler is not Nightcrawler in those movies. It drives me absolutely insane. I don't care if it's the newer one or the older one, whatever. It's just that's not the character. Um I'm all for like reinterpreting stuff, but that's one where it's like Nightcrawler, Kurt Wagner, like that character is like confident and sure of himself, and like
Oh.
there's a lot of things about him that he's like, it's he has a tendency in the comics to actually be um uh like a voice of reason, or like a spiritual support. I mean, like he's a priest in the comics. um so like there are those moments where it's like where people go to him and he gives really sound sage advice, whereas the Nightcrawler that's in those movies, I wouldn't ask him to help me tie my shoe for fear that he would mess it up. Like he is such a mess. Even the kid version the in Apocalypse is just like so unsure of himself, and that's one of the cool dynamics about Nightcrawler, is that it's like of all of the X-Men, it's like he looks like a devil and people are afraid of him based on the way that he looks. but he doesn't let it stop him from being the person that he is. Like he
Right.
has that like sense of self, and the Alan Cumming version does not have a sense of self. That's actually like part of the plot for that character.
Yeah,
And it's
it is.
like,
Yeah.
so
I wouldn't, because I don't know. I'm not familiar with that character,
no,
but
exactly.
100% that's not what you get. That's the
Yeah,
opposite of.
he's antithetical to it. So it's like, it's one
Yeah.
of those things where I'm like,
What a
some of
weird
that
choice.
stuff rings true.
Yeah.
Wolverine is great, especially like depending on the movie, right? But for the most part, Hugh Jackman nails that character so good. Even Kelsey Grammer coming in and playing Beast is in the
Oh,
third one.
I love Kelsey Grammer's Beast.
Even
He's
though
great.
that movie is awful, he's not the problem. He does a
Yeah.
great job
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
that character and plays that character. He plays Hank McCoy to a T, and even Days of Future Past Hank McCoy
Yeah.
is another
Yeah.
great interpretation of Beast. Right, there are great
Yeah.
characters in the X-Men movies. Unfortunately, Bryan Singer is an absolute trash human being that should be in jail, but for some reason isn't. He just walks around. And thankfully, his career seems to be more or less toast. I don't know that he's working on anything. If he is, don't go see it. I don't support any of his stuff. Somebody said something about, I can't remember online if it was on in the Facebook group or on Twitter or something, but somebody said something to me recently about like, oh, with X-Men stuff in the MCU, and it's like, oh, like fit everything into continuity, and I'm like, yeah, like I would be all for that. Like I think it was something about Fassbender and McAvoy
Oh
continuing to
yeah.
play those characters, which I'm like, yeah, like I do actually really like both of them in those roles. I think that they do a really great job of it. I would really love to see Fassbender with the silver hair being like a proper Magneto. As much as like I love the first class interpretation, it's really good. But I don't, if doing that requires legally for Marvel and Disney to give Bryan Singer any money whatsoever, don't do it. Like that's my personal
Right.
opinion, and it has nothing to do with those movies and the quality of those movies, and just the fact that like I just don't want to. I don't want to be inadvertently supporting that trash person by watching my MCU movies. You know what I mean? Um, I guess we're
Yeah.
kind of already in that dilemma with the guy that we talked about 2 weeks ago,
Yeah.
and you know
Yep.
those two Avengers movies that he made, and I'm sure that he gets lots of pennies every time we say the word Avengers. But you know, like, can we mitigate that? I guess is what I'm saying. Can we not add another predatory piece of garbage to that pile? That moral debt every time I watch a Marvel movie. That'd be fantastic. Thanks, guys. Um, yeah, I don't know. Somehow we ended up talking about the X-Men. That's
Because
I didn't
sure,
I didn't expect to go there.
why not?
I I
We
can't
talked about a lot of
believe
stuff though.
I can't believe we still have zero hints at mutants in the MCU.
Yeah.
We have
Yeah.
gotten WandaVision, Loki. Okay, WandaVision, Falcon and Winter Soldier, Loki. What if? What if the multiverse show? What if? And then Hawkeye, right? Did I miss one? No, that's
No.
all of them, right? That's
Mhm.
five. We have 5 MCU TV shows, not to mention a Spider-Man movie that deals with the multiverse. I, 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 Eternals, which I really thought was going to be our intro to mutants, and Black Widow, Shang-Chi. Like so many four movies that were opportunities to give us just like anything
A
to
hint.
hint at mutants.
Anything.
And
And we
we've
got
gotten
nothing.
zero. We've gotten zilch,
Yep.
nothing, absolutely nothing. We haven't even gotten our hint at maybe WandaVision gave us a partial hint at Reed Richards, but I think they kind of confirmed within their own season that that's not who they were talking about. But like, come on, we don't even know Fantastic Four stuff yet. Eternals was supposed
It
to be a
might
bigger
just be
deal than
all.
it was. It really just did not move the needle for me. It just wasn't. Yes, I continue to. I've only seen it the one time in the theaters. It's on Disney
Oh,
Plus. I have
I
no intention
enjoy
of
it so
watching it.
much.
I don't know.
Ugh.
It's not for me.
It's so slow, but I don't know. I had it was weirdly one of the few things that I genuinely anticipated for multiple days before it came out on Disney Plus.
Yeah.
And then like watched it the first day that it came out.
I am
Don't think I'll watch it
beyond
again, but
happy for everyone who shares your feelings on that.
mhm.
Like I like genuinely, like that's not like sarcastic
Yeah, yeah,
or
yeah.
spiteful or anything. It's like I'm glad that it works for other people. It does not work for me. I have no interest whatsoever. I'll
Yeah.
watch the last 5 minutes of it if I feel like watching something from it.
Uh
None of the fight sequences are interesting to me. The the one that the on social media, or maybe it was on YouTube, I think they played a promo for right when it was coming out on Disney Plus. The promo was just the end of the Bollywood sequence
oh yeah.
into
Yeah.
Kumail like greeting everybody, and it was like I was like, oh yeah, I like that movie. I just wish that movie was the whole movie, but it's not. That's it. That's the that was
Yeah.
it. That's it. Like we get a couple of good zingers and stuff from that character in the movie later on, but then at a certain point they go, "Hey, that character that you really like, he's just going to leave."
Yeah.
Okay, are there
Yeah.
consequences to him leaving? Nope. Okay, but like there's like going to be like a rift between him and the other Eternals later on, right? Nuh-uh. No, it's fine. Okay. All right.
Well, no, see, I get that. I don't know. I understand. I liked that. It's the idea to, I mean, again, because we're on the Nazi topic, like the idea that, like, Eternals, what a great conversation about people thinking that they were making the world better and actually making it
Sure.
worse. And then there's those people that have to just that like choose to step back, right? And then you have to decide afterwards whether or not you can be friends with them again. And I think in that situation, people understood. I mean, again, not to equate it too much to Nazis, but the um
Yeah.
like that situation, right? When you have to be able to honor people when they say, "I don't agree with you, but I don't want to hurt you, so I can't be a part of this right now, and I will come back to you when I can be
Mhm.
there fully." Like, I don't know, I think there's something quite beautiful about allowing space for that to have happened in that movie,
Yeah.
right? Like
I
there was
I
yeah, I don't know.
wish that aspect of it had been explored or had consequences in any way, shape, or form. But it really
Right,
doesn't.
okay.
Like to me, that's
It
the
doesn't.
thing where
You
it's
are right.
like wasted, right? Is that it's like, oh,
Yeah.
what an interesting moral conundrum we find ourselves. It's done. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. He's just gonna leave. Okay,
Yeah.
he's just gonna fly. He's just gonna fly away. Okay.
Yeah. Well, he doesn't fly technically.
Well, he gets on his jet. He goes back to his private
Oh,
jet and
oh,
flies
okay,
away.
fine.
Yeah,
Yes, he does. He does. I guess. I get so
yeah.
used to the flying being a
Anyways,
specific thing.
Eternals. That's a thing that happened last year that I forget about a lot. That's it. We're done. This is an episode. We did it. It was an episode.
This
That
is
was a whole
we
complete
have talked a
episode.
lot.
We talked about pop
There was pop
culture.
culture and everything.
We talked about
Yeah.
we talked about Jeff Goldblum, and I mentioned Joel Kinnaman. Same episode.
Yeah.
I
I just what else is there to talk about?
Oscar
I don't
Isaac,
know.
of course, but we're not
Oh,
going
I
to
can't
because we're
believe.
done. But I said his
That's true.
name, I was just like, I gotta now that I've pointed out that we're talking about men that
Yeah.
I admire. Uh, uh, I have to say
You had
Oscar
to.
Isaac.
You
I
had to.
said it
There
twice.
you
If I say it one more time, I think he appears. Right? Is that how that
go. We'll
works?
summon him.
Oh
That's
my
exactly
god!
how that works.
I'm gonna say it a third time. Oscar Isaac in a reboot of Beetlejuice. Come on, I'd watch that. I'd watch that movie. That'd be fantastic. But it's unfair for me to say that because if you were like, I don't know, Amanda, pick the movie you think I care about the least in the world. I'm gonna put you on the spot with
Oh.
this. What is it? What do you think it is?
Oh. Interstellar.
There you go. Interstellar. Switch out Matthew McConaughey. That's a good pull. That was a test. That was a test of our friendship, and you passed.
Yeah.
Because that Matt Campbell is sitting listening to the end of this episode right now, and he's like, "You did it. You got the one. That was the one. That was the one. That's the movie." Interstellar. I hate that movie. What a boring movie about a very interesting topic. Yeah, if you replace Matthew McConaughey's very dry, stale cardboard performance in that movie, except for when he's cry laughing at the end, not earned. With Oscar Isaac, I bet you anything that movie's fantastic. If you tell me that, because I don't watch Christopher Nolan movies since the Dark Knight gets up. He climbs out of the thing, right? That's why it's called that. I haven't watched a Christopher Nolan movie since that one. Because I just can't put myself through it. But if you told me that Oscar Isaac is in the next Christopher Nolan movie, I'd be like, cool. Yeah, sounds great.
Sign me up. Yeah.
Sign me up.
There you go.
If you told me that Oscar Isaac was burning ants with a magnifying glass down the street, I'd be gone. I wouldn't even hit stop on the recording. I would just leave and deal with it later.
That's the most exciting thing
to
have happened all day.
Yeah.
All year. Cool. We couldn't help but talk about Oscar Isaac a little bit. So
one day I'll get to be in the same room as him.
Ugh,
like probably from a distance, probably like so far away, and either it will be like a spiritual experience, or it will just deflate me because I'll just be like, he's shorter than I thought.
Oh, it's like the what is it? The LeVar Burton, Troy.
Yeah.
I just wanted a picture.
You can't disappoint a picture.
You can't disappoint a picture.
There we go. 2 community references in one episode. We did it. This is an episode of the Thunderquack podcast. Thank you guys for listening. Support us on Patreon. Why wouldn't you? Listen, did you not just listen to this podcast? We made some very good points about why Nazis are bad. So I'm glad that we had the bravery to do so when nobody else does. That's the problem, is that that's almost a true statement right now, because what the hell is going on in our world that people don't have the guts to stand up and do something about it. But anyways, yeah, and then we just talked about geeky stuff.
Yeah, it's good times.
I think we deserve $1 a month. I don't know.
Yeah,
that's what I think.
I mean, I think you are correct.
Probably not as much as like starving children somewhere, less than
that's fair.
But
here's the thing. If you have the ability to support us or support organizations that help fight Nazis or make the world a bit better by not supporting Nazis, you can do that as well.
Yeah. We
would be equally grateful if you could do that.
We're still going to count it as supporting us, though. That still counts as supporting Thunderquack. You just have to tell us so I can add it to the total every month.
Yeah. Oh, actually, also speaking of awesome things that we support, Project for Awesome is coming up soon. DFTBA Nerdfighter people that I feel are like tangential to this podcast listening. So that's a way to help decrease world suck.
Yep.
Literally, that's the name of their charity. So pay attention to that, and we'll all try to make the world a little bit better.
Yeah, I joined the Awesome Socks Club for 2022, which means that every month I give them $12 and I get a crazy pair of socks. It's fantastic.
Awesome. I also did the they have like a foundation for like the like maternal Center for Excellence in Sierra Leone. Yeah. The one of the whatever the organization is that they do that through has a Canadian like part of it, so you can donate in America or in Canada.
Cool.
Which is cool. So anyways, do what you can. Make the world a little bit better.
Yep. Okay.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for listening. See it. Next week is, oh my God, I don't know what next week is. We've had Enough Said episodes for so long that it's now snuck up on me, and I have to figure out what we're doing next week.
We'll figure it out. Yep. It'll be something.
Okay.
All right. Stay safe, everybody. Bye.
Oh, you didn't do the sign off. You're just
I
gonna
said stay
abandon
safe,
it.
everybody.
You said stay safe.
And then,
Interesting.
yeah. People can wash their hands and be kind to one another if they choose.
Now I have to decide if I'm going to leave that in or not.
You can...
Follow the Thunderquack Podcast on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook by searching the Thunderquack Podcast. You can support us in 3 ways. First, by heading to the podcast service of your choice and leaving a rating and review. Second, by going to store.thunderquack.com to pick up some merch from your favorite podcasts. And last but not least, by heading to patreon.com/thunderquack to kick in with your monthly pledge of support and get cool rewards like early access and extended episodes. The Thunderquack Podcast is the official podcast of thunderquack.com. Head to thunderquack.com to discover more great podcasts.